So tonight we're doing chapter 136 in Tehilim. You will notice that in this chapter there are 26 verses, 26 pesukim. They correspond to the 26 generations from the beginning of the creation up until the receiving of the Torah. So there is a little bit of a description in this chapter about the many miracles that happened to Am Yisrael, to the Jewish nation, that we should take notice of the details. Why details? Why is it important to point out the details? Since Tehilim is a book of praise and thanks to Hashem, it is important that we be as aware as possible about the many things that happen with us at a regular basis. We just get so used to things happening that we assume it's nature, we assume that it's going to happen tomorrow in the same way that it happened today, and we sometimes forget that there's something called Hashgacha. Hashgacha is divine providence. Hashem supervises the world. So even though He did establish a set of laws, and the world pretty much runs by itself, if He would remove His Hashgacha, then it would stop running by itself. It would not be possible. The Jew is being asked to pay attention to details because it is through the details that we can reinforce our emunah. So when we say these verses, it is not only a matter of giving thanks to Hashem, but to praise and to point out to ourselves and to others that all that we observe is a miracle. It is a true miracle. Because miracles happen all the time, the rabbis composed various prayers of thanks and gratitude to Hashem from time to time. Whether these are miracles that happened to our forefathers, and hopefully they will happen with us as well, or they're unusual miracles that only happen to certain individuals at a given time. So I'm going to just share with you one example of such a miracle for which there's a special blessing, and I will explain why there is a need to say that blessing. I was once traveling from Jerusalem to Tveria. As you know, for those of you who are familiar, there are various ways that you can take to go up north from Jerusalem. On this particular trip, this friend of mine suggested that we take the road that is a little bit slower, but it's the road of the Bik'at HaYarden, as it's called, the Jordan Valley. And not too much to see, but it's very interesting. It's desert, mountain, and it's close to the Jordanian border. But it is also a road that passes through Jericho, the outskirts. Okay, not too many settlements to see, so it would be nice to see at least the outskirts of Jericho. And as we're traveling, he stops very close to Jericho, gets out of his car and makes a special blessing. A blessing that you don't hear too often. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, she'asa li nes b'makom hazeh. Praises God, thanks God for having performed a miracle on my behalf on this spot. I said, really? What miracle happened to you on this spot? He says, well, during one of those intifadas, I went by through here, and they threw a Molotov cocktail at me, at my car. And the car immediately was engulfed in flames, and I barely made it out alive. For this kind of a miracle, the rabbis tell us, you make a blessing every time you go by that same spot, and you say that blessing. Thank God, praise to God, who performed a miracle for me on this spot. Whenever you go there. Obviously, that we all may have occasion in our life to give thanks to Hashem, special thanks, whether it was for a miracle or even for a favor, that we sometimes think of it as something normal, but it's not, and that is a child being born. A boy, there's the circumcision, so people are going to make a big festivity of it anyway. But what about a girl? Just because she's a girl, she doesn't deserve a party? Be thankful that your wife, the mother, is healthy, the child is healthy. She's a future mother, God willing. Make something. You're supposed to do something in honor of that miracle. I call it a miracle because it is a miracle. We just think it's natural, it's biology, but this is a miracle. So there are blessings, there are opportunities for a Jew to make a meal, a Seudat Hodaya, Thanksgiving meal, and to share his story with others, as David HaMelech is doing in this book. These words are powerful, according to the Kabbalah, because of another reason altogether. It's not only to impress us about what happened or what we experienced, but every time we say these words, even from miracles that happened a long time ago, it does something in the upper worlds, which we can't see, but we're told. It's like we're pressing buttons. It's like we're reminding the heavens, Hashem, you're the one that performs miracles all the time. Continue to do so. And obviously, if more and more people would say this, he would do so. So, even though we're going to talk about the special segula of every chapter, special power, in general, saying words of praise to Hashem, praying, sincerely of course, is very powerful. Even if you're not doing it for something specific, even if you're doing it on a regular basis, the regular prayers every day, it is said sincerely, it is powerful. It definitely does something in the upper world. Besides the fact that this connects us, prayer connects us with the Almighty, it reminds us of our dependency on Him, and obviously we're reminded as well that He listens. He's not removed from this world, He actually listens to our prayers. So even though you're going to see a lot of familiar verses here, and we're going to go pretty fast through them because they're easy to follow, don't just think, no, this is just history. You will see how there is detail in every verse. In every statement that is being said over here, there is much to learn from. Because what happened in the past, God willing, will repeat. The good things will repeat in the future as well. So when we say it with kavanah, with proper intent, then we're giving it even more power. The segula for this perek is to admit our wrongs, our offenses that were done intentionally. Sometimes people do things unintentionally, but what about the times that they do it intentionally? It's worse. So this particular chapter is helpful because perhaps, I'm saying this, perhaps by saying these words of thanks and showing all the appreciation to Hashem, this will somehow neutralize the effect of those things that he may have done that were negative, that were in opposition to Hashem. It's not just a matter of asking forgiveness, it's a matter of getting our state of mind back to a healthy state of mind where we are able to communicate with Him, not being angry, but actually being happy to express our thanks to Him. So somebody who committed a wrong intentionally, he's very, very low spiritually. He may not be able to express himself as well. He needs help. So this chapter possibly can help someone like that to elevate him from that lowliness that he's in. So as we started saying, there's 26 verses, and this corresponds to an interesting period in our history of mankind, that the rabbis describe as early stages. Early stages, not that much happens of great significance after creation, up until Kabbalat Torah. Kabbalat Torah is a very important stage in the history of the world, not just for the Jewish people. This is not just about the formation of the Jews. This is an important stage, an important phase where the Torah, the guide to life, is being given. And this goes through stages too. We have the temple, the services. We have the Talmud, where the oral law that was oral is written down. And that lasts for a long time too, because it's being developed, written down, taught, studied. And then you have the last stage of this 6,000 years world, and that is the stage of Mashiach. In other words, Mashiach can come at any time during that last stage. So these verses represent the various steps that occurred throughout our history in that we can observe Hashem's kindness in more than one way. So we praise Hashem for He is good, for His kindness is forever. So you're going to see the word Ki Le'olam Chesdo mentioned 26 times. Every single verse. Hashem is kind. Why mention it so much? Because the entire creation, the entire purpose of the creation is an act of chesed. It's an act of kindness. Hashem doesn't need this world. You think He needs it? He doesn't need anything. I mean, He controls everything. He has everything. Why did He have to create a world? He didn't have to. It's all chesed. As the Kabbalah teaches, it's an act of kindness. It's all because Hashem's essence is good. And the nature of good is to do good. So that is why you see the word chesed. Because chesed, as we've said many times in the past, also applies to those who may not deserve it. Regardless, Hashem is kind. Obviously there is an attribute of justice. Yesh din ve'yesh dayan. There is justice. We don't see it right away perhaps, but there is. There needs to be. But the overall character, if we can call it that, of Hashem is chesed. From the very early stages of creation. But look at the second word of this verse, Odu Lashem. He doesn't say Elohim here because we're talking about Midat HaRachamim. The world could have been created with din, just with justice. It wouldn't have lasted. As soon as people did something wrong, they would be punished. Hashem therefore says, I need to combine the attribute of mercy, of compassion. That's why Hodul Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, this name of Hashem represents compassion, mercy. So thank Hashem that there is mercy, which enables us to do teshuvah, enables us to repent. But don't forget, Ki Le'olam Chesed, that chesed is not just once in the past, it's forever. Hashem does not change. Human beings sometimes change their mind, right? They change the way they behave. Ki Le'olam Chesed. The chesed, you may not see it now, but it's always there. Verse 2. Odu le'Elohei Elohim ki le'olam chesdo. Praise Hashem of the supernal beings. Elokei ha'Elohim. Who are we talking about? Which supernal beings? The angels. Ki le'olam chesdo. What do we have to praise Hashem? Why do we need to say that His kindness is forever with angels? This is important because we're talking about not the angels per se, we're talking about the God of the angels too. Never make the mistake that you're just thanking them for doing you a favor, for doing anything on your behalf. Even though they are messengers of Hashem, that's all they are messengers. Don't forget the boss. That's where idolatry first made a mistake. When they thought we have to give credit or thanks to the messengers of God. Yes, but don't forget the boss. They eventually forgot about the boss. And we're just stuck with the messengers. Idols. So be careful. Give thanks to Elokei HaElohim. In other words, to the God, to the master of all these supernal beings. But why say Ki Le'olam Chesdo over here? What exactly is kind over here? So the rabbis tell us that we have to be thankful to Hashem that if He wants to exact an atonement from someone, how does He do it? So the rich man, he sends him something of value, and after he has sent him something of value, like let's say a cow, he takes that away from him. He first gave it to him so that he could take it from him. And if it's a poor man, he sends him something smaller. Whatever it is, Hashem gives something to the individual so that he can take that something away from him. By taking it away from him, he atones for some sin. So that atonement and giving the individual a way by which he can atone for his sins is a chesed. So since we're talking about Elohim over here, we're talking about judgment, that is the chesed associated with judgment or with atonement. Hashem makes it easy for us. Because had we not had anything, what is He going to take from us? And remember what the Kabbalah teaches, that first Hashem touches the finances before He touches the physical body. So if anything is supposed to go wrong, hopefully it won't be the physical body. That's not replaceable. Money is. So if something happens to your home, something happens to your car, kapara, an atonement, that it shouldn't be any worse than that, because those things are replaceable or repairable. So that's all chesed, that he gives us a way by which we can atone for it. The reason it's also called chesed is because it does not happen by asking us, do we want the atonement or not? Hashem does it for us whether we want it or not. It happens regardless. In other words, if Hashem would have to wait for us, ask forgiveness, bring a korban and sacrifice, it may not happen. People push things off. So this is a chesed too. Hashem takes care of it. Because you're not going to pay for it, I'll find a way that you will pay for it. I'll do it for you. So the fact that Hashem does it for us is a tremendous act of chesed, kindness. Verse 3, Hodu la'adonei ha'adonim ki lo olam chazor. So now we're going to praise the master of the heavenly hosts, for his kindness is forever. So what's this? How is this any different? So who's the master? Who's the heavenly host? What are we talking about here? We're talking about the mazalot. We're talking about the stars. These are heavenly hosts. These have a mission. These have a tafkid. Hashem did not just create stars, to make it beautiful. It's not just about making the sky beautiful at night with stars. Even though they do produce some illumination, but they're so far away and they're so large. Who needs all those galaxies for? So scientists have not figured this out yet. Billions of galaxies. You know what that is? And they're incredibly big, but they're so far. Do we really benefit from them? So I have a lecture about this. Why did Hashem create all those stars and galaxies for? Even though we may never know the real answer, we have a little bit of an idea that the Kabbalah teaches. So here he's talking about the master of those hosts. They are the mazalot. Those mazalot control our fate and destiny to some extent. So, are you going to serve them? God forbid, no. You're going to give thanks to the master of those hosts. Because he's the one that directs them. It is through Hashem's instructions that they do whatever they do. So be careful not to make the mistake of just turning to the mazalot and ask the mazal, as some did. Please open up my luck. No, turn to the master of those hosts. Some say it's talking about the kings, not in the skies, but down here below. So don't think that they are the ones that you should turn to and they are the ones that are going to help you. In the end, there's the king of all kings. That's another interpretation. Verse Daled, verse 4, is a very powerful one. It is something that we've spoken a little bit about. Lo seniflaot gedolot levado, ki leolam chazdo, who alone performs great wonders, for his kindness is forever. Alone. A lot of miracles occur on a daily basis, even without our knowledge. We're unaware of. The Torah brings an example of a person waking up in the morning, putting his foot down, and not realizing it. Didn't even notice it. But there was a snake there, poisonous snake. And because he put his foot down just at the right spot, he killed it. He stepped on it. So he may not even realize it. There's a lot of things that happen that we don't even realize. Hashem does these things levado. He performs great wonders alone. Many, many stories that people never found out. That had they been there a little bit longer, they would have been in trouble. It just happened to be that they left on the right time. And sometimes you see videos actually of people who were either a little bit before or right after a tremendous landslide, as an example, or an avalanche. Had they been there a second before, they would have been killed. Now those can be observable. Those, you turn around and you can see it. But there are times that you missed it. You don't even know that had you been there, you would have been in danger. So Hashem performs miracles all the time alone that we're not aware of. Pasuk Hey, verse 5. You will notice that as we progress here, he's going to talk more about miracles that happen in the form of nature. And up until now, there was some mention of miracles that are above the laws of nature. And the reason why he prefaced the chapter with certain miracles that are not natural necessarily is to remind us that the power of miracles was embedded in nature. In other words, Hashem made it so from the very beginning of creation that even though nature is set, but it's not set in stone. Hashem can change the laws of nature. That's what a miracle is. It's above the laws of nature. As we saw and we will see, mentioned here with Kriyat Yam Suf, the splitting of the Red Sea. So even though the waters are supposed to behave in a certain way, Hashem can change the rules. So that's what a miracle is. A real miracle is Hashem changing the rules. Those changes are embedded in the very beginning of creation. Hashem made it possible to later on, if necessary, change those rules. So that is why you have an introduction somewhat of all kinds of things that happen that are supernatural. You see the word niflaot, wonders. And there's mention of quite a few wonders. It's mentioned right here in order to tell us this comes before everything else, because the ability to change, the ability to make a pele, a wonder, was from day one around. So he begins with verse 5. Le'oseh hashamayim bitvuna ki le'olam chasdo. He makes the heavens with understanding, for his kindness is forever. So what's so unique about the heavens? So here he's talking about the sun, he's talking about the moon, he's talking about the planets. These have tvuna, they have understanding. They actually understand. These are not just stones. There's some life to them. They have their own way of praising Hashem, singing to Hashem. We just don't hear it. So these are made bitvuna. So tvuna applies to them, that they have this understanding, but it also applies to the cycles. In other words, if you look at the cycle of the sun, you look at the cycle of the moon, you look at the way these heavenly bodies operate, you will see tremendous understanding that Hashem put into this system, that it functions accurately. Our calendars are based on some of this. So that is why, admire this, look at this. This is all chesed that Hashem has helped us in order to provide life on this planet. Many things have to be perfect. The sun has to be at just a certain distance. The moon, what does the moon do? Many things too. It's not just the moon out there. What does Hashem put a moon 250,000 miles or so from Earth? Who needs that body called the moon? It's not just for the calendar, it also affects the tides. It does other things too. So there's tevuna, there's understanding all of this. Look at this, this is chesed. This is all an act of kindness. Hashem is kind in the fact also that He continues to let these things operate. Hashem didn't say, okay, stop. They will continue for as long as Hashem wants. The fact that they continue to do so, and they do so accurately, that is a chesed. Same thing with the next verses. Verse Vav, Lerokah haaretz al hamayim ki le'olam chasdo, who spreads forth the earth above the waters, for his kindness is forever. To spread the earth above the waters. We assume we're walking on earth, but that's not a right assumption. The nature of earth is to sink in water, and there's water underneath. There's a water table, there's water everywhere. We just don't see it. We just see the waters of the ocean. So one idea behind this verse is that Hashem takes that land and puts it in the water. He does something which is not natural. Earth would sink in water, and here Hashem enabled it somehow that we should be able to walk on the earth and that we should not sink. This is chesed too. Don't take it for granted. But it's not just that. Hashem also put rules to the water that it should not go beyond a certain limit. Otherwise, you would have a tsunami, and we know what a tsunami would do. So Lerokah haaretz al hamayim also applies to the limitations, or to the dividing line between earth and water. Number 3, it also applies to the benefits that we have the earth being on top of water, because if there is water and there's not enough rain, then it's through the water that's underneath the earth that things can grow and provide food, sustenance. So all of that pretty much is included in this verse. Look how much chesed there is by placing the earth above the water. Zayin, verse 7, Le'oseh orim gedolim ki le'olam chasdo, who makes the great lights, for his kindness is forever. So in general, Hashem makes the great lights. Don't think that this is the sun necessarily. This applies to the stars. The great lights. The sun is just a small star. Very small in comparison to some of the stars. So, what are these for? These Orim Gedolim. Well, we don't have a sun at night. And if there's no moon, what light are you going to have? We have starlight. The starlight can also help you with direction. The stars can help direction. Whether you're in the sea for navigation purposes or in the desert, you need sometimes navigation, right? Direction. And today, with the technology that we have today, we can actually combine through certain instruments all of that starlight to enable us to see in the dark, as they do in the military. You need a little bit of light. If you don't have a little bit of light, you cannot magnify it to enable you to see at night. So all of this is chesed. If you don't go to the desert, you're not in the ocean, you may not notice it. That's why he wrote it down for us. Hey, look, this is all chesed. Chet, et hashemesh lememshelet bayom ki le'olam chasdo. Well, the sun we're familiar with is to rule by day, for his kindness is forever. How is that kindness? Well, we all know all the benefits that we have from the sun. That we somewhat know. Do we know all? Well, not really. Perhaps there's many more that we don't know. But I'm saying that there are quite a few, including energy, warmth. Besides light, the sun provides a lot. That's all chesed. Thank God that it's not too close to planet Earth, otherwise we'd burn up. Thank God that it's not too far, otherwise it'd be too cold. What else is there? What about planet Earth being tilted from time to time to provide for the change in seasons? All of that is included here. All of that is chesed. The sun therefore rules during the day. It is the king of the day. That's something that we need during the day. So what about the night? That's verse 9. At night you have the moon and the stars to rule by night, for his kindness is forever. So, they too have some benefit for us, but that benefit is reserved for the nighttime. We said it in the past that Hashem separated day and night for a variety of reasons. Animals usually are awake at night. Human beings usually are awake during the day, even though people have different shifts, I know that. There's a reason to separate the two. So there's a reason to separate the moon from the sun, even though the two of them are important. There's a time for everything. So the moon and the stars have a memshala balayla. They rule at night. They serve a certain purpose. Not too much light. Just enough to get by. Besides what we said before about the calendar, the moon is definitely for the Jewish people important in establishing the calendar. But it's not only talking about that. It's talking in general that they serve a purpose. Don't think Hashem created them for no reason. Admire them because they are beneficial to you. It's all an act of kindness. Alright, now that we're done with the celestial bodies, we're going to go through a little bit of history in Egypt. Some of it, which we've already seen. But this is all about praising Hashem and pointing out those details that happened to us in the past so that we not forget. So we have verse 10. Who struck Egypt through its firstborn, for his kindness is forever. You could have said Lemakeh bechorehem. Lemakeh Mitzrayim bi vechorehem. What does that mean? The language here is a little bit different than usual. So the rabbis tell us part of the miracle of the plague of the firstborn in Egypt was that the firstborn They knew what was coming. They were upset. Just let those Jews leave. We don't want to die. They didn't listen. And they themselves killed their family members, the ones who resisted. So it's the Makeh Mitzrayim. The Mitzrayim was hit through who? Through the Bechorehem themselves. In other words, that was part of the miracle too, that they became upset and they killed others. Imagine this has happened, where you have an army that self-defeats itself. They start killing each other, they're upset. This is something that happened here too. Something similar to that. That's all an act of kindness, that Hashem did it the way He did. People might say, oh, it's a fluke, it was an accident. No, there's no such thing. As the Baal Shem Tov has taught, we must keep in mind that even when you see a leaf falling off a tree, that's also B'Hashgacha, it's also through divine providence. Obviously, it could be that this leaf will not necessarily accomplish anything. That's okay. But the fact that it fell means that Hashem allowed for it to fall. And I always make this distinction. There's some things that Hashem allows for them to happen, and some things that He actively wants them to happen. But even allowing something to happen and not intervening is B'Hashgacha. 11. Vayotze Yisrael mitocham ki leolam chasdo. After that last plague, Hashem brought out Israel out of their midst, for His kindness is forever. So, the taking out of the Jewish people out of Egypt was a significant event. Now, they could have come out in all kinds of ways. Hashem made it happen in a miraculous way for a variety of reasons. He wanted to impress the Jews as well. I am the one that's in control. I am your God. I'm going to be giving you a Torah. So obviously it needed to happen in a certain way. The Egyptians got measure for measure what they deserved. But the emphasis over here that Hashem took him out is not because of the miracles or the way it happened, more so that it needed to happen. And Hashem did not want to wait anymore. They were on a very, very low level, the Kabbalah says, on the 49th level of impurity. They could not stay any longer. So the fact that Hashem didn't let them stay one day longer is also B'Hashgacha. It's also through divine providence. The timing, that's what we're talking about in this verse. It's the timing that is important. He took him out just at the right time, at the last possible moment. Don't think that this just happened by itself. The timing is also from Shamayim. It's also Chesed. How did it happen? We're going to see that now in the next few verses. How did the Exodus, the Yetziat Mitzrayim, occur, step by step? So first of all, he tells us that this happened b'yad chazaka u'bezroa netuya ki le'olam chasdo. Verse 12. It happened with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm, for His kindness forever. What would be the difference between the hand and the outstretched arm? Most people who read this pasuk will never ask this question, perhaps, won't pay attention. But there is a difference. Obviously, every word makes a difference here. It's not just superfluous repetition. We said before, there is detail here. So the Yad Chazakah, the strong hand, that is a necessity when we're talking about defeating accusations. There's accusations against the Jewish people. They were immersed in idolatry. Why are they any better than the Egyptians? Why perform miracles for them? Do they really deserve it? In order to defeat the accusations, in order to get them out of this trouble that they're in, you need a strong hand. The strong hand is a powerful force to be able to defeat that. Don't just think, well, Hashem can do anything He wants. Of course He could. But do they deserve it? Sometimes, in order to do something for someone, you need merits, tremendous merits. Perhaps they even the merits of the parents and grandparents to help him. So don't assume that this is so easy. Of course, for Hashem, everything is easy. There's no problem. But there is a system here, a judicial system that He created. It's a fair world. Do they deserve it or not? So you needed the Yad Chazakah, tremendous power, to get through those accusations. But what about the outstretched arm? How is that any difference? I didn't really see too many commentaries talk about this. In the past, I've spoken about the difference between the hand and the arm, perhaps corresponding to the Sefirot, the various emanations of God. the hand has 5 fingers. Kabbalistically, you can explain these things in a certain way. But here, without the Kabbalah, the simple interpretation of the outstretched arm is perhaps talking about the Hatzalah itself, the saving of the Jew. Because what we just said in Yad Chazakah, with the strong hand, we were describing what was necessary to defeat the accusation. But to actually get them out, the Hatzalah, to save them, that you need a Zerah Netuya. Why? An outstretched arm? Why isn't the hand good enough? What does an outstretched arm symbolize? That Hashem extends His arm. Come on, I want to save you. Hold on to it. This extended arm is extended every day, all the time, to those who are spiritually adrift, who are very far from Judaism, who have no clue what Judaism is. They need to be saved. That's what happened there too. It's not just being saved physically, but spiritually. So all of that is kindness, that Hashem shows us the way, waits for us, comes knocking at the door. Come on, return to me. So sometimes you have to stretch out the arm a long ways to call on to people to come back. 13. Legozer yamsuf legezarim ki leolam chasdo. Split the sea of reeds into sections, for His kindness is forever. Not everybody is familiar with the Midrash that talks about how the Red Sea was split. Here, there's a detail. It was split into gezarim, to sections. All we know is that it was split. And that's what the pasuk is really all about. That was a very, very big miracle, for which we celebrate Shvi Shel Pesach, the 7th day of Pesach, separately, besides the first days of Passover. It's the last days of Passover are to commemorate this incredible miracle. But the detail that is being added over here, that it was done in sections, meaning that each tribe went through a different freeway. You had the 101, the 405, and the 5, right? They have different freeways, different sections. It was not all together in the same lane. So it's just an additional description of how this happened. And this was all act of kindness as well. You know, referring to that whole event, the way it happened, what went on in the ground, as we will see in the next pasuk, was also miraculous. Look at 14. Ve'evir Yisrael betocho ki leolam chasdo. And He brought Israel across it, for His kindness is forever. Of course He brought Israel across it. Why would He split it? Yes, but you got to take notice of that too. How did He get him across? It wasn't just the splitting of the Red Sea, which of course was of a necessity, otherwise they can't get through. So that was a big miracle. But it was dry land. It wasn't wet. It wasn't muddy. How He got him through, the Midrash goes on to describe many, many details of what went on in the land that they crossed. In other words, where there was water before. Because the water that split was like tall pillars. They could drink from it. There was a lot of miracles happening inside as they were crossing through it. And that's what's being described here in verse 14. How He took him. It could have been painful. He didn't have to take them by splitting the Red Sea. You know what He could have done instead? The commentaries say, Hashem could have enabled them to cross the water in water and not let them drown. That would be a miracle too. But they would get wet and they would be afraid. Hashem made it easy. He split it and He dried everything and He made it comfortable for them to cross. That's all described in verse 14. All right, what happened after that? They're perhaps still fearful that the Egyptians may come after them. Are we done with them forever? Yes. In order to prove that, verse 15 says, "V'ni'er Paro v'chelo b'yamsuf ki le'olam chasdo." And he cast Paro and his army into the sea of reeds, for His kindness is forever. As we know what happened, the waters later covered them up and they drowned. And that, of course, was measure for measure. We're not happy when that happens, when the enemy falls. You're not supposed to be. If we rejoice, it's because we were saved, not because the enemy fell. Never, never. Hashem has His ways of doing things because everything's measure for measure. That's what the attribute of justice does. It demands justice. But for us, we don't rejoice in the downfall of the enemy. So even though it says, and Hashem made them drown, that's just to account for something that they did to the little Jewish children, that they drowned them in the Nile. All right, so we're done with the water. What happened now? After this, that's Zayin, verse 16. So he led his people through the desert. That's not simple, especially for 40 years. Millions of people we're talking about, men, women, and children. How are you going to feed them? Does anybody know a caterer that can provide food and drink for so many people? Hashem. Hashem provides for the entire world, for all his creatures. He took care of them and he taught them. I will provide for you all the time. Parnasah, livelihood, is from me, not from your PhD. Even though you may want to get a PhD, that's fine. But in the end, the source of your livelihood is from me. That is why manna came down every day. So he led them through the desert. The desert was a school. Many lessons were learned. They were taken care of. They didn't suffer from the elements, not from the heat, not from the scorpions or the snakes. All of that is chesed. All of that is an act of kindness. Verse 17, 18, 19, and 20 relate to the kings that they defeated. Remember, we're talking about a nation of slaves. They're not experienced. They definitely don't know how to wage war. And even though there are many, many Jews, you think it's simple? All you got to do is go back in time to the Holocaust. How is it possible that one German soldier led 1,000 human beings and they didn't gang up on him? It's difficult to understand, but what happens in real life is that when people are oppressed and they're down and weak, they don't think what they can do. That is, of course, part of the punishment too, that you will not be able to fight the enemy, even though you can outnumber him. So what? It's not the numbers that's going to make a difference. So here, we're dealing with powerful kings that are much more experienced than the Jews in doing battle. And miracle after miracle, these kings are defeated. So he breaks it up into several verses to describe the various details involved here. So we have verse 17, لَمَكِّمْ مَلَخِمْ گِدُولِمْ كِي لَعُلَمْ خَزْدُو, who struck down great kings for his kindnesses forever. Great kings, not only back then, but throughout the history. Great kings were struck down, yes. So that first statement is more of a general statement, which refers to the kings of Canaan, which is going to be the land of Israel. So many kings were struck down. And these are not just kings, these are Melachim Gedolim. They're big kings, great kings. Verse 18, Vayarog Melachim Adirim ki leolam chazdo. And he slew mighty kings for his kindnesses forever. That's interesting. I wasn't paying too much attention to this before, but I guess I noticed now. Look at the difference between 17 and 18 on the first word. In 17 it's lemakeh, and in 18 it's vayarog. He struck and he slew. You may say, oh, it's synonymous, it's the same thing, they were defeated. But there's definitely a difference between them. You could have kings that are defeated, but they're not killed necessarily. They give up, they ran away. You have those kind of situations too. And that's what happened, according to one midrash, the Girgashi, which was a certain area of Israel, certain people, they left, they ran away, they didn't stay, they didn't fight. So you have Melachim that were mukim, they were defeated, they were struck, perhaps they ran away. That could be one explanation for the difference in the word, because when we're talking about they were killed by Yarog, and he slew mighty kings, it means that they were actually killed. And this would go, of course, against all odds. No one would think that these great mighty kings would be killed. Who could take them on? Nobody did. They always were winning against others. So this is a miracle. This is an act of chesed. And in order for the Jewish people to get to Israel, they had to pass by certain areas. Powerful kings. Don't forget that. You don't have a video of it. There are no pictures of this. So David HaMelech has to remind us. This, in fact, happened. All right, verse 19. Who are some of those kings? It specifies. It needs to specify because these kings, nobody would defeat them. Verse 19 says, "V'sichon melech Amori ki leolam chasdo," and verse 20 says, "Uleog melech Bashan ki leolam chasdo." Sichon, the king of the Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan. Whoever reads a little bit more in the Midrash, who they were, who was Sichon, who was Og, especially Og. He was a giant, very powerful, very difficult to defeat. Nonetheless, Hashem did it for us. It was not the Jews that did it. Even though they may have gone to war, don't think it was through their arms, through their skill. It was Hashem who did it. Ki leolam chasdo. So this has to be pointed out to us because it was not easy to defeat those kings. The commentaries tell us that the reason why David HaMelech here specifies the names is because for those two, Sichon and Og, special shira should have been said. To sing to Hashem, to praise and thank Hashem in the Torah, but it was not. So he therefore says it instead. Let's praise Hashem, thank Hashem for the defeat of these two mighty kings. Og is mentioned apart, not together with Sichon, because we're also dealing with a king that many depended on. Oh, if he's around, nobody will hurt us, nobody will get through here. They depended on him. Hashem says, so what if they did? I can get rid of him too. So this was a very powerful lesson to the Jews. Look, these individuals who so many other nations depended on, they could not stop you. Verse 21, "V'natan artzam le'nachala ki le'olam chasdo," and he gave their land as a heritage for his kindness is forever. So we've mentioned this in the past, that the Nahala, the heritage, is also from Shamayim. And that land was given, the land of these kings. Even though it was not part of Israel, that too went to the Jewish people. So that is also an act of chesed. It was not part of the plan. But Hashem says, here, I give you another piece of land. This was given to us from Shamayim. This is also an act of chesed. Don't think that this is just, oh, by the way it happened. No, there's such a thing as by the way. This is also designed in heaven. Verse 22, however, is more specific. Nachala li'Yisrael avdo ki le'olam chasdo. A heritage to Israel, his servant for his kindness forever. What is that? Perhaps this is more specific about the actual land of Israel and not those territories outside the land. You may wonder, does this make any difference today? And the answer is yes. Today, yes, because a lot of people say this land does not belong to us. This land is our heritage. Why did this happen this way, that we were kicked out and now we're having trouble regaining our foothold there? That's already mishamayim. It's also from above. Perhaps we need more merits. The time has not come yet. But there should be no doubt that this is not something that you can just give away. This is yours. So this is being emphasized and reminded continuously that this was already back then promised to us. And Hashem delivered it. Verse 23. Shebeshifrenu zachar lanu ki leolam chasdo. Hashem remembered us in our humiliation, for his kindness is forever. What does it mean, humiliation here? Well, you could say Jews were humiliated in Egypt, but it's not so much just plain old humiliation. The word shefel in Lashon HaKodesh means in our low state, a low spiritual state. Hashem remembered us, as we said before. He didn't want us to stay any longer. He remembered us. But why use the word zachar lanu? Hashem took us out when we were low. The commentaries tell us that it's very important that a human being keep a low profile. Definitely not be haughty. Be shafel. That can help him in being saved. Not to claim, Hashem, I deserve that you take me out. You know, don't say those things. Pray to Hashem, be humble. So shiflut is a form of humbleness. It's a form of being low. Not only low spiritually, which of course is true, that Hashem cares about those who are spiritually low and He takes us out, helps us get us out from that state, but it also means that psychologically, how we think of ourselves is that perhaps we don't deserve it. So if we behave that way, Shebeshifrenu Zachar Lanu, He will remember us. He will turn to us. This could be also very helpful. A Jew needs to continuously remember that even though he may be b'shefel, he may be low, regardless of his situation, even in the lowest situation where he thinks that he may never get out of it, he's in jail maybe forever. We recently saw an incredible story of a person coming out of jail, being pardoned by the president. So there's all kinds of ways that people can come out of the lowly state, whether that lowly state is spiritual state, whether it's poverty. But it's important to be shafil, to be humble in one's eyes, not to expect it, not to demand it. So therefore, if one is in that state, Zachalanu, Hashem will remember it. He will not look away. Don't think that Hashem looks away. No. Those that are low, Hashem really looks after them. Verse 24. Vayifrekenu mitzarenu ki leolam chasdo. And He redeemed us from our oppressors, for His kindness is forever. So this redeem us, vayifrekenu, is also a very unusual word, not always used. But perhaps the idea here is, we didn't run away. Hashem actually did it. In other words, He could have done it in some other way, that let us just run away. Let them be blind, the Egyptians. Let it happen in all kinds of ways. They're hit so hard that we should run away. No, we did not run away. We were told to leave. We left in public. It could be seen. Therefore, from our oppressors, He actually took us out in such a way where they had no choice but to let us go out. Imagine getting out of jail by making a tunnel underneath and running out. No. Hashem says, I'm going to break down those gates. I'm going to break them down so then you can come out. So then they'll just tell you, go ahead. In other words, they're going to see all those miracles happening from Shamayim. You did not do this on your own, but Hashem did it. Hopefully they're going to learn from this that there is a God too. So it had to happen in such a way where Hashem did it, and not that they did this on their own. And of course, He took us out from our oppressors. It wasn't because He just wanted to take us out. They were our oppressors, and therefore, Hashem did not want us to stay one day longer in oppression. That's also a very valuable lesson. If pain and suffering is coming to a person, he should know that there's a timetable of when he will no longer be oppressed. So this is being emphasized over here, that redemption was not just to get us out and just take us to Israel. No. There was a time set that we will be in bondage, and the time came for us to be liberated from bondage. Pasuk Kafhei 25, Noten lechem l'chol basar ki leolam chasdo. He gives food to all flesh, for His kindness is forever. Look how He talks about food now. Before He talked about the redemption, the splitting of the Red Sea, the rabbis tell us, you think the Red Sea is miraculous? Providing you with food is also miraculous. That's the connection. That is where the two are adjacent to each other. In the same way that the redemption is miraculous because there may be accusations, there may be difficulties to overcome, you need miracles. Same thing with parnasah, the livelihood. Don't assume that it's coming to you, that it will happen easily. You may need a miracle. So livelihood happens in the miraculous way. Hashem provides the kol basar, to all flesh. Hashem created them all. He takes care of them. How is the parnasah different than the redemption? The redemption was a one-time event. Parnasah is every day. So we're having this chesed of Hashem providing us, taking care of us at all times. Last pasuk, the last verse. Hodu le'el hashamayim ki le'olam chasdo. Praise Hashem of heaven, for His kindness is forever. Hashem takes care of the entire world. How does he take care of the entire world? Well, first of all, where does the rain come from? Rain is something that the entire world needs. So when he says the words Le'el Hashamayim, he's insinuating we're talking about that which comes down from heaven as well, and that's the rain. But why make this distinction here towards the end? This is the last verse of the chapter. We're thanking Hashem because Hashem is not like an ordinary king. An ordinary king may have many responsibilities and tasks. If he's managing a war effort, he may not be able to take care of everything else. There's so many duties and so many needs. A human being is not capable of doing it at all. Hodu le'el Hashamayim. Therefore, you have to be thankful because the God of Shamayim, he does manage the entire world. At the same time, he takes care of everyone. Of those who are singles, he finds them a soulmate. Takes care of Parnassah, takes care of the weather, takes care of people's lives, and saves them from danger. So many things happening at the same time simultaneously. That is all a tremendous act of chesed, a tremendous act of kindness that we need to pay attention. So much is going on all over the world. Little babies are being born all the time. People are in danger. Their life is in danger. Who's going to protect them? Who's managing all the billions of people in the world, all the creatures, all at the same time? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Almighty.